this is Rock Hard Caucus. I'm here. I got to record an intro for this because this is going to be a very unusual episode of this podcast. Because, well, let me explain a little bit. If you've been listening to our Patreon series, Rock Hard Call Us, you know that I sent out a mass email to over 200 candidates who are going to be on the ballots for the election here in the state of Iowa. And many of those people have taken me up on my invitation to talk. And I've been having phone conversations with several of them. Here's just an excerpt from that email I sent. And I hope that you listening, you find this to be an accurate statement. Our listeners reside all over the state, are politically engaged, mostly younger, and mostly on the far left end of the ideological spectrum. Okay, so I wanted to be honest about the purpose of this podcast, you know, what kind of interview these people would be stepping into. And so I expected, you know, I call it far left, you know, I don't know who's going to respond, but I assume it's going to be mostly people with some sympathies toward far left politics. And I have so far been surprised by who is willing to actually engage with an email from a podcast called Rock Hard Caucus. Anyway, I'm going to play for you now 3 of these phone conversations. This week, I talked to Rosanne Plante, who's a Democrat running for Iowa House District 13. I talked to Pence, a Democrat running for Iowa House District 70. And then I talked for a good long while with Dani Duggan, who is the Republican running for Iowa House District 34. I want to stress that playing these conversations here on the podcast is not an endorsement. Far from it, actually. I liked Pence. I think she's the one who I probably agree with the most and would be most comfortable voting for if I lived in her district, which I don't. But in these conversations, you're going to hear things that you disagree with and that you know that I disagree with because you listen to this podcast and I'm pretty open about my opinions. And I do push back a little bit against things that these candidates are saying that I think are wrong, but I don't push back that much. And you can feel free to disagree with my approach here, my interview strategy. One, I don't feel super comfortable confronting people aggressively on their political positions when we're having a one-on-one conversation. And also, I really just wanted to keep them going, like keep talking. I want this to be sort of like an accurate and uncensored portrayal of who these people actually are. Particularly the third interview you're going to hear. I want the real person to come through. I want this to be sort of I guess educational. I want us to collectively understand what kind of person runs in these, you know, small time local elections. What's the barrier to entry to get on the ballot in a lot of these smaller races? What kind of people end up getting their names on the ballot? And what do they believe and how do they present themselves? So I hope that at the very least, these series of interviews accomplishes that goal. And I guess with that said, I'll let them roll. So up first is Rosanne Plante, then you got Pence, and then Dani Duggan. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Verizon Wireless. The number you dialed has been changed, disconnected, or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number and try your call again.
Well, that's awesome.
Hello, this is Rosanne.
Hi, Rosanne. This is Justin with Rock Hard Caucus. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, I can hear you just fine. How about, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well also.
Perfect.
Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. I must have dialed your number wrong and it didn't work the first time, but I am recording this call, okay?
Okay, nope, that is fine.
Okay, awesome. First off, I just wanted to thank you for accepting my invitation to talk.
Well, I'm pleased to talk to anybody who would like to hear about my candidacy, my campaign, and my policies and my ideas for the State House.
Awesome. And just to make sure that I am pronouncing your name right, it is Rosanne Plante, right?
It's actually Plante, Rosanne Plante.
Plante. Okay, glad I asked. And you are you're the Democrat running for Iowa House District 13, which is,
that is correct.
In western Iowa, kind of an area surrounding Sioux City, but not Sioux City.
Yes, that's correct. It is one of the new formed districts. So it's a corner of Cherokee by Marcus, Meriden, Cleghorn, Washita, and Quimby. It's rural Woodbury, rural Plymouth, and all of Monona. So it is one of the largest districts of all the House districts that people are running for. So I have one of the biggest territories, yes, but no part of Sioux City. That's correct.
Right. And Ken Carlson, Republican, is he's the incumbent, but he is not running for re-election. So this is an open election. That
is correct.
Okay. And I've got Republican Travis Sitzman and Independent Parker Hansen as your opponents.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, I've tried to do a little bit of research here. I'm all the way on the other side of the state, so I'm a little bit disconnected from what's going on in your district. But one little thing I learned is that your Republican opponent, Travis Sitzman, he resides in Lamar's.
I can tell you what I've been told by the Secretary of State. So my source is the Secretary of State's office, and he did have a home in Lamar's, I believe on 6th Avenue. It was sold, and the Secretary of State did inform me that on the 60th day before the election, which is the deadline to move into the district, his residence is now a rental in Kingsley, Iowa, that's connected to a local church.
Okay.
So it's a property apparently affiliated with a church.
Okay. I'm sure that is entirely legitimate, and he really lives there.
I do not have any other information except that provided by the Secretary of State.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's certainly an interesting fact in the race, because Lamar's is actually just outside of your territory there.
That is correct. And what I would like your listeners to know, though, that I am a Democrat. I have always been a Democrat. And I'm a moderate Democrat, a purple Democrat, somebody who's reaching across the aisle to Republicans. I think Republicans have fine ideas as well, and that we need to work together as a bipartisan group to get things done for the Iowa people. But most importantly, I'm the only candidate that didn't have to move into the district. My husband and I own our acreage. We've recently paid it off. We have 10 beautiful acres on C70, which is just outside Hinton. And we've been here for 10 years, and we don't plan on leaving. We are a staple in the community, and we've hosted many garden walks. I'm a master gardener, and the property is manicured and has many gardens and a koi pond, and we have a garden that we donate the food to local soup kitchens and food pantries with my Green Ambassador program. And we are very established in the community, and our land benefits those in the community. So I have a stake in it. I think you have to have skin in the game, and we definitely have skin in the game with our very nice acreage here, which we plan to keep as long as we can into our old age.
Right on. That all sounds pretty good to me. I do, if you don't mind, I do want to ask you a little bit more about, you call yourself a moderate Democrat. Your part of the state, Western Iowa, is pretty red, pretty conservative. I imagine the House district is also a lot of Republican voters over there. So it makes a lot of sense to me that you're going to have to win some of them over if you want to win your election.
Correct.
And I read, this was a Siouxland Proud article, which came out shortly after you were selected as the Democratic nominee over there, which it quoted you, and you said pretty much exactly what you just said a minute ago. And part of that I want to drill down on is you said, I support Republican ideas and policies that are good. Do you have maybe an example of a Republican idea or policy that is good?
Certainly. And so not all of them are bad. I support balancing the budget. I support watching our spending. I support conservative ideals to a point. Okay. For instance, I do believe that abortion should not be used as birth control. However, I am endorsed by Planned Parenthood, and I feel that the current law of the 6-week, very strict abortion law is not representative of the needs of Iowa. There are women when an abortion is health care. Okay. So I think that a lot of where we've gotten lost in the weeds here, both at the state and the national level, is that there are good policies, but they've been taken to an extreme by some Republicans. And I think what we need to do is put guardrails on some ideas. Okay. And right now, an overwhelming percentage of people do not support the current ban. It's not because they just want people to use abortion, for birth control or for whatever reason they want, but women need to have a choice, especially when it comes to healthcare decisions. I am one of those women that had to have a procedure because I had a miscarriage, and that happened just about 8 years ago. And I don't know if the care I received is even available anymore. I don't think it is. And that would have caused a strain on us, and I would have had to be driven, which is what's happening to other states. So that's an example of when I say good, I think some of these things have gone too far, and we need to back them up and put guardrails on them.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you agree with some kind of like conservative economic principles, which I don't think is super uncommon among even Democrats. On the issue of abortion, and just to put my cards on the table, I really don't support any like abortion restrictions at all. I don't think it's really the state's place to get involved in that. Like, if somebody needs to terminate a pregnancy, that's pretty much their business, I think. But your position, it sounds like you would maybe be supportive of some restrictions on abortion.
Well, here's the deal. To get this done for the people, I think as a legislator, you have to realize that there is a spectrum of people out there, a wide range, and that you do have to reflect that. And so, yes, I would be supportive of some restrictions, but reasonable ones, okay? Reasonable ones that didn't harm women.
Okay. Well, we talked about maybe some Republican ideas that you think are maybe good but taken too far. Are there any Republican ideas? Well, let's think about the reality of the state right now. It's pretty dominated by the Republican Party. What would you say are Republican ideas that maybe are just bad? Not just taken too far, but they're bad ideas.
Well, I don't think you can answer that any other way but look at the terrible disservice that's been done to our education system, both in the destruction of the AEAs and the voucher system. Literally what is happening is we are taking money away from public school students. We're putting that money in vouchers where these pop-up schools literally are popping up and they are unregulated, and children are being sent there, and public school children are suffering. And then when you add that into the fact that the AEAs are being reduced to practically nothing, I have already spoke to so many teachers and individuals who said, I had AEA services and I didn't even realize they were AEA services. I thought they were just services that the public provided, the public schools provided. And now I realize that they fell under the AEA and we don't have anything. I have already spoke to literally over 50 teachers just since school started, and things have fallen apart as early as the second week of school. And I have pledged, if I elected, I will begin immediately having town hall meetings throughout the district. I'd like to have one in each county where teachers can come to me if they need anonymously, because of course they're scared for their jobs, and tell me in the weeds, okay? And in my line of work, I'm an attorney, and I call it trench law. What really happens day to day with family law and kids. So I want to hear from the teachers, what's going on? So for instance, I was at one of the county fairs, and a teacher came up and said, right now I can order books. And if I'm going to do a unit on butterflies or insects, I can order these books. And I can get them, as long as they're ordered by Tuesday, I can have them by Monday. Now they want to take, the bookmobile away from me and all these services that are under the AEA. I'll have to, if they're even available, order these books from Des Moines. And she said that's going to make it impossible, and there's only so many of these books, and so they'll never be available. And that's just one example of the resources that are no longer available. So it is a hollowing out of our public education system. And as a graduate of Sioux City East High. I was a public school student who received an excellent education. I came from a single parent household. My mother was divorced when I was very young. We did not have money to send me to a private school. And I still received an excellent education. And right now, that opportunity is not there for our students, and it's getting worse and worse. The voucher schools, as I calling them, the pop-up schools, they also do not have to take students with special needs, with special abilities, and so they are cherry picking the students, therefore artificially inflating the test scores. And very soon, the money will be flowing there. The state budget will be in chaos because we've already broke the budget for these vouchers. And if we don't get some guardrails on this soon, we are going to be in serious trouble statewide, not just in the education sphere, but in the budgetary sphere as well. So that is a policy that I 100% think was a disservice to our citizens and to our children, who are the future citizens and taxpayers.
Yeah, I feel the public education is definitely being undermined by the party in power right now. Can I ask, what do you think is the intent behind that? Why did they do that?
It's hard to know intent in politics. It is very difficult. I can give you my opinion, and that's all I can give you right now is my educated opinion. And that is that the Republicans want more control over the children and the education of the children coming up. They want to be able to allow a lot of these voucher schools are church sponsored, and they want these church organizations to be able to teach the curriculum that they want, how they want, when they want, and the ideals and the beliefs that they want in a uncontrolled environment. They literally can teach their version of U.S. history, for example. And so I can only prophesize that it's some sort of indoctrination, perhaps, that the Republicans are hoping happens in these public school or in these private schools that is not in the public school arena. Mm-hmm. But once again, that is intent. As an attorney, I deal with intent right. every day. A lot of criminal laws are based on the intent. Did you have the intent to steal that candy bar? Or did you accidentally pick it up? So, and I always used to tell my students, I used to teach business law. I used to be a professor at 2 local colleges. Intent is not something that I can take an otoscope and look in your ear and see, okay, like I can your cochlear ear bones, okay? You can't, there's no x-ray for intent. It is something that unless you have a smoking gun and somebody writes it in an email or puts it on a billboard, you don't really know intent. And so I say that with caution and say that's just my opinion. Once again, it's very, very hard to know the true intent of why people do what they do.
Sure. And I think that the party's actions to regulate the public schools in certain ways as well would support your opinion. For example, their efforts to remove certain types of books from public school libraries and to restrict the, gender identity expressions of students and their participation in sports, for example. And also their efforts to sort of ban diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, even at institutions of higher learning, even at the university level. It does seem like they want to funnel people into a certain set of ideas as they're growing up. And
what I would say to kind of top off this part of the discussion is actions speak louder than words. Look at their actions.
Yeah, for sure. So, Rosanne, before we wrap it up, well, actually, I am curious. Do you know anything about the independent candidate, Parker Hansen?
Just what he has put out there. I know he's a native of Correctionville. And this is just off his website. Mm-hmm. So that's my source. I always like to quote my sources. I know that he's a product of the local public schools. I know he has a business degree. I believe this is his first race. I believe it's all of our first races, all 3 of us. And I do know from a voter activation network. There's a thing called Voter Activation Network that has information, and I do have one for the Democratic Party. I do know that when you look him up, he at one point was registered as a Republican in that system. I don't know if he still is. So I'm not exactly sure why he's running as an independent, but that you would have to ask him. But that's all that I know, is that he is passionate about the community and is running as well.
Okay, cool. And I'm sure I emailed him as well, so maybe I'll hear back from him at some point. I also see that you went to Morningside College, right?
I did university now, but it was college then.
Right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, just a personal connection. That's where my parents met, so I have warm feelings towards Morningside.
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
All right, so...
And I taught there. There for a number of years too, both as an adjunct and a visiting professor, yes.
Okay, so you have experience as an adjunct professor too. That's good to know for those of us who have suffered in the same industry.
Yes. No, I was a student, and then years later, I taught for almost over 10 years as an adjunct, and then I did have a 2-year visiting. For 2 years, I was a visiting professor of business, kind of during the COVID era, to help the college get through some, some times and faculty shortages.
Right. All right. So, Rosanne, I guess just for the last 30 seconds to 1 minute, what's your biggest priority? How would you sell yourself to the voters of your district?
Okay. Well, I am, as I stated, the purple candidate, and that means that I'm a moderate and that I want to reach across the aisle and do the best for citizens. I believe that citizens should look at the people and not if you have an R or a D behind your name. As an attorney with 29 years experience, as a mediator, I mediate divorces. I'm able to cut through the chaos and calm people down, which is what you need at the State House. And as a volunteer lobbyist, somebody who's already been in Des Moines for the last 5 years, writing legislation and trying to get things done for citizens, I realized that you could only do so much as a concerned citizen. That's why I'm running right now to be the state representative for District 13. Because of my experience as an attorney, as somebody who has legislative writing experience already, I will be ready to go on day one to work for everyone in District 13.
All right, Rosanne Plante, thank you again for your time. If you're listening, you want to know more, her website is planteforiowa.com. That's Plante for Iowa.com.
Yes. For Iowa.com. It's updated on a regular basis. All of my information is available. I also have a Facebook page. People can just type in my name for Iowa House, and you can see daily updates. There are daily updates every day from now until Election Day. And I hope everybody, at the very least, educates themselves about the candidates and votes. This is the election of our lifetime, and we need everybody, no matter Democrat, Republican, Independent, never voted, first voters, last, but I talked to a lady, she's 102. She says, this will probably be my last time. But please, everybody, get out and vote. It's your right here in the United States, and we want to hear what the citizens want.
All right. Thanks again, Rosanne, and you have a good day.
Yes. And can I just ask you, when
Sure.
will this air, or will you post it, or what's the procedure at this point?
I will edit this and some other interviews. I will try to have them online next week, and I will email you a link to it. Okay?
That would be great. I so appreciate you reaching out and for you including me with your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. And again, have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Kay.
Hi, Kay. This is Justin Comer with Rock Hard Caucus.
Yeah,
Can you hear me okay?
sure.
Okay, fantastic. And I am recording this call, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Well, first I wanted to thank you for accepting my invitation to talk on my podcast. And people will be hearing this right now. So just to set this up, Kay Pence is the Democrat for Iowa House District 70, and she's running against incumbent Republican Norlin Momsen. And Kay, just let me know if I have this right. The 70th district is just north of the Quad Cities. It contains portions of Scott, Clinton, and Jackson counties.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, fantastic. I was looking at your campaign website just to get an idea as to what you are prioritizing in your campaign. and you have issues pages for private property rights, public education, living wages, workforce protections, and clean water.
Mm-hmm.
Which of those would you say is maybe like your main focus right now?
Well, right now I'd probably say the clean water because, I was number 2 in the nation for cancer, and we have some of the fastest growing rates. So it's not just clean water, it's our whole healthy environment that I don't believe that anyone in Des Moines has been paying attention to this for quite some time, and it's getting serious.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If you could you explain to me maybe like why our water is not as clean as it should be? How is this happening?
Well, we're number 1 in the nation for confined animal feeding operations. Number 2 is North Carolina, and they've had a moratorium on new and expanded CAFO since 1997. And we probably have, I don't know the number, but something like 25 times more animals submitting waste than we have people in the state. And of course, the people's waste is treated, and the animal waste is not.
And so it just enters into our bodies of water. Well,
it's spread on the fields, and a lot of times, in addition, they use synthetic fertilizers. And, states like Minnesota have now required, buffer strips or cover crops. I mean, there's a lot of ways to keep the nutrients in the field and out of our waterways. But in Iowa, we only have voluntary compliance.
Right. Okay. Good. That's what I was going to ask you next. So, first of all, I appreciate Minnesota doing that since we're downstream from them. And so we're not getting a ton of pollution from them, but then we pollute it a lot ourselves, and then it continues south. So apologies to Missouri and everybody down there. But we only have voluntary compliance. So my question for you would be, if you were to be elected to the Iowa House, how do we turn this around? Like, what's the alternative to voluntary compliance?
Well, I mean, we could have some guidelines. I know that Iowa State has recommendations, but there's, of how much nutrients should be put on a field, but there's no consequences if they put too much on. There's guidelines of not spreading manure on frozen ground, but there's no consequences if they do otherwise. I'm not sure what we would want for consequences, but, I don't know what's the use of having guidelines if we're not following them.
Right.
They don't want row crops within a 2-year floodplain. Maybe if you're planting in a 2-year floodplain, you don't qualify for crop insurance.
Sure.
I don't think that taxpayers should be subsidizing the pollution of our waters.
Right. I would agree with that. And, if the polluters are not paying any consequences, somebody's going to pay consequences. And I'll refer back to our increasing cancer rate as one consequence. Right.
Well, and, Des Moines Water Works, I mean, when they're treating for nutrients, when the water coming into their treatment facility is too polluted to use, I mean, they spend $10,000 a day to treat their water. My son lives in the small town of Princeton, Iowa. It's a community of less than 1,000. 2 years ago, they had to replace their well because of nitrate pollution, and they spent over $650,000. I mean, a lot of it came as a grant from the state, and they borrowed, and everybody's water rates went up. But now, 2 years later, that well's contaminated again. And I just don't think that we can continue to expect consumers to pay for this.
Yeah, I would hope that this is not sustainable for many reasons. And so we need some sort of political solution. Hopefully we can elect some people who take this issue seriously, like yourself, for example.
Right.
And Kay, the other night you emailed me a statement about wind turbines that you had delivered at a public hearing. And I don't know the full background on this, but I guess there's been proposals to put up some new wind turbines in your district, and there's a lot of opposition to that idea. Can you tell me what's going on there?
Yeah, the turbines that they're proposing to put up are probably some of the tallest in Iowa. And that is a concern, and it's a legitimate concern for the landowners. They have an ordinance, some counties don't. But when they wrote their ordinances, they were anticipating, nothing quite this tall. And so they do need to upgrade them. But then there's a lot of people that don't want them at all. And, I think that the county board will come to a good balance of the private property rights for the people that do want them and the people that are concerned that they would be a bad neighbor. But, with climate change, look how many people just died with the hurricane that hit Florida and the southern states. Our severe weather are going to continue to happen. Our insurance rates are going up. Our coal-fired power plants will be shut down, and we have to look to the future. And then also with the farms, the price of corn is right now down below the cost of production. And, a farmer, some of them are interested in having a wind turbine on their land because it gives them stable income that they don't need to worry about weather events and droughts. It's a consistent, and it might be the difference between them keeping or losing the family farm.
Okay, so
I do have sympathy for the landowners.
Yeah, if I'm understanding this correctly, the people who own the land do want to have wind turbines on their land, but their neighbors maybe don't want them to have that.
Well, some do. Some don't want it on their own land, but some of them do. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned how tall these are. These are extraordinarily tall wind turbines. What exactly is the concern there? Why do we care if it's too tall?
Well, they're talking 600 feet, so that would be some of the tallest structures in Iowa. And, perhaps with an ice storm, if they get ice on it, the sheet's ice may fling off. So there are hazards that they can cause.
Yeah.
And people are concerned about the bird strikes, but even the Audubon Society is in favor of properly sited wind turbines because they're better than coal-fired power plants and the pollution that they put out.
Yeah, I've heard the concern about birds. Famously, Donald Trump brought this up years and years ago. How many birds actually get killed by wind farms?
It's not that many, and the number one killer of birds is our domestic house cats. And
okay.
I have picture windows. I have a bird hit my window probably every week.
Oh, sure, that's happened in my house a couple times. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I took my feeders down because I just hate it when they hit my windows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you are concerned with preserving the life of our avian friends, keep your cats inside. That's going to be the biggest difference, I think.
Yes.
And Kay, you also mentioned you gave me a little bit of background here. There was also widespread opposition to solar panels being installed in parts of your district. And there are local ordinances allowing or preventing that. Would you mind explaining what's going on there too? Yeah.
In Clinton County, they did some of the same things that they're doing now. They had a lot of public hearings and they weighed balancing, rights and responsibilities, and they came up with a good ordinance that's going to allow solar panels in Clinton County. They have to be, they can't strip the topsoil off. They have to be underplanted with native grasses or pollinators, things like that, so that soil is going to be healthier under those panels, 25 years from now than they were when they put them on. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Scott County, they zoned them out. The only place in Scott County they could be is probably in the Wapsie River bottoms. They wanted to keep them off good farmland with a corn suitable rating of, I think, 65 or better, which is almost all of Scott County.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we have all kinds of construction, and we have an Amazon, and they're talking a new data center. That's going on good farmland, and that farmland will never be returned to production. Right.
Okay, so I guess what is the opposition to solar exactly? Like, why would most people, or I guess a lot of people in your district, be against the installation of solar panels?
A lot of them that were against it was because they were taking cropland out of production.
What you just said.
But, yeah. So, but what they also allow, and I believe Clinton County's ordinance allows it too, is agrivoltaic, where they can still graze sheep or have honeybees. And Iowa State is experimenting with growing crops under the solar panels.
Under the solar panels. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think, like, why don't we just put them on top of structures that are already erected?
Well, that would probably be a good idea. And, when Scott County zoned to allow them to put the big Amazon plant in, it would have been nice if they would have been over their parking lot or on their roofs. But they didn't ask them to do that.
Seems like a good, efficient use of space, but we're passing on that opportunity.
Well, and especially when you have a large utility user. Mm-hmm. Like with this data center that's coming in, a data center uses anywhere from 10 to 50 times more electricity than a similar sized office building or warehouse. So they're big energy users, and I think that responsible zoning could maybe ask them to generate some of their own electricity.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's probably a fair trade. Is it also maybe a concern that these wind turbines and solar panels are the property of private utilities? Like, I know Mid-American owns a lot of wind power in this state. Is that something that gets brought up by the people who oppose these things?
I don't know that that's a problem, because they're leasing the land, and I believe that it's probably good they stay the property of whoever put them in, because then they can have in the zoning that they're responsible for removing them, or they're responsible for any damage that is caused.
Sure. Yeah. As long as we hold them accountable to, keep up with maintenance and everything.
Exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was some of the concerns with the landowners, is like, what happens if they're damaged and they're not working? Are they just going to abandon them and leave us with, mess to clean up? And they can deal with that in a good zoning ordinance. Yeah,
hopefully. Yeah. Another issue, if you don't mind me moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Another issue that you highlight on your website is a living wage. And a very basic question: how much would be a living wage in your district?
Well, one of the things we could allow is local control again, because at one point we had some counties that were raising their own minimum wage because of their local conditions. Iowa is a low wage state. Our minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, which is not a living wage for anywhere in the state.
Nope.
And sometimes people object to a one-time fits all, but when they had local control, they had local flexibility, so they could address the needs of, like Iowa City has high rent. They have college town, and their minimum wage, I think, was stepping up to eventually 15, but it wasn't there yet. They're gradually stepping in.
I live here, and we did briefly implement a 10-10 minimum wage that got shut down by the state.
Right. And, why do you elect local people if you tie their hands to address the needs of the people they're elected to represent? I mean, that's what I don't understand.
Mm-hmm. So do you know if there is like a wage that you have in mind that would be a good minimum for where you live?
Well, I think that a $15 minimum wage is probably reasonable, but I don't think that we can get there in one big step. I mean, it has to phase in.
Sure. Yeah.
And, and then have it go with the cost of living. And one of the things that was really funny last year, the House passed a wage increase for themselves, which would have been a 40% wage increase. And it's just, it was crazy to me that their annual salary, they don't work full time, but they make about $25,000 for 4 months worth of work. They wanted to raise it by another $10,000. And it's just like, they could do that for themselves, but not the working poor. I found that kind of, selfish.
Yeah, I think selfish is the right word for it. Not considering the rest of the state, not allowing any local municipalities to raise the minimum wage for their own communities. But yeah, looking out for themselves and their bottom line. Mm-hmm. Sounds selfish to me.
Yeah. Well, and, they said, well, we can only attract retirees and farmers, and maybe if we had more wages, we could attract more diverse legislature. But it's a part-time legislature. Most people, don't have jobs that allow them to be flexible to take the, first quarter of the year off.
Sure, take the legislative session off of your day job. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Can I ask you something about your opponent, Norland Momsen?
Sure.
Okay. This is actually kind of how Mr. Momsen, Representative Momsen, got on my radar a couple years ago. I'm quoting from the Clinton Herald here, who said that in February of 2022, a bill proposed by Momsen, it failed. The House subcommittee declined this bill, and the bill would have required schools to install a camera in every classroom except for special education and physical education classrooms. And all of these cameras would broadcast to a secure website that parents and guardians of students could tune into at any time. And Norland Momsen said he was a little disappointed that his bill did not escape the subcommittee. What do you think of this educational proposal, Kay?
Well, I thought it was a ridiculous proposal, as did most of the school districts. Mm-hmm. One thing, it's an unfunded mandate. Another thing, it invades the privacy of the classroom. The teachers have to get a waiver if they're going to go on a field trip and that might take pictures, whether or not your child can be in the picture. And sometimes there's custody issues where, or a protective order or whatever, that, it's not appropriate to be taking pictures of the children. And what stops somebody else from hacking into that? I mean, parents were upset, teachers were upset, the unfunded mandate. It was just poorly thought out. And even, obviously it didn't go anywhere, even in a Republican-controlled legislature.
Yeah. I will say I don't have a lot of faith in our state government to be able to put together a secure website that is live streaming every classroom in the entire state. I don't know how secure they could really make that.
Well, and that was the fear.
Well, I guess I'm curious, what do you think the concern was here? What was the problem that Representative Momsen was trying to solve with this idea?
I don't know that there was a problem he was trying to solve. Mm-hmm. I think he was trying to, they have so many urban myths about teachers grooming children, and they talk about, furries and all these crazy things that they think are going on in public school classrooms that are just not true.
Yeah. I will say that there are furries, but the litter box thing was absolutely a falsehood. That they're trying to get people riled up. Do you have any maybe proposals for improvements to our state's education system?
Well, I'd like to see the AEA funding restored. Mm-hmm. I know that for especially the school districts that I will represent, it's already causing a hardship. I had a teacher, in the Cal Wheat School District, one of those children got hit at a bus stop and other children saw it. And, luckily he's fine, but, he was airlifted out of there. And normally when they would have a crisis, like when they had in Perry with the shooting, they get mental health counselors from all over flooding in there. That didn't happen this time. And any of the AEA services that these public schools want to use, it's a paid fee for service. And for these rural schools, they don't know how their budget's going to handle it. I mean, they're paying for the service now, but they're afraid their funds will run out by the end of the year. I talked to a special ed teacher because they're trying to make the whole state the same. In eastern Iowa, people have a lot of opportunities to go work in Illinois. So some of these people with specialized skills. So in the Area 9, the wages were a little higher than the rest of the state. Well, in order to balance the wages, they're cutting hours. So, the AEA started the year down over 400 employees. And then if the existing employees' hours are being cut, I'm just afraid too many services are going to fall through the cracks.
Yeah, employees will, like you said, they can find work pretty easily somewhere that'll pay better. So they're going to do that.
Right. If they want to work full time, they're going to work full time where they get paid full time.
Right. Yes.
And I had a grandmother who's got custody of her grandson, and he needs special ed services. She lives in Macokota. She has to drive to Davenport to get her grandson services. And, that's a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day. Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of a commute to add to your daily schedule.
Well, and if she had a job or, multiple children, that child would either fall through the cracks or the family would probably relocate to where he could get the services that he needed.
Right.
And so, our rural areas are already losing populations.
Kay, let me ask you, on your workforce section of your website, you call out unscrupulous employers, which is a phrase that I really appreciate. I'm glad you are you're talking about unscrupulous employers. Could you give me an example of what an unscrupulous employer does?
Well, wage theft in Iowa is a $900 million problem. So we have employers that are forcing their employees to work off the clock, or they're not paying them for their overtime that they work, or forcing people to pool tips. There's a lot of ways that people are not being paid properly. And, we'll go after a shoplifter, but the penalties for somebody who cheats their employees on their paychecks, it's like slap on the wrist and you pay them what you owe. Well, you should have paid them what they owed to begin with. So if you don't get caught, you win.
That's right. Yeah. Much like with shoplifting, if you don't get caught, you win.
Right. but a lot of, there was a recent contractor who got a big fine and had to pay a lot of back wages because he called his employees independent contractors.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. They work only for him. They drive his vehicles, use his tools, and at the end of the tax year, they're expected to have paid their own workers' comp, their own unemployment insurance, or their own employer's share of their Social Security and Medicare. And so when we have a contractor that goes into bid against a good contractor who has employees that he pays well, they're able to underbid them on the backs of their workers.
Right. They're cutting a bunch of corners. So that's just efficient business, huh?
Well, that's what I'd call it, the unscrupulous employer.
Yes. Kay, well, we should probably start wrapping this up. I appreciate your time. Thank you for, again, accepting my invitation. Is there anything that you would say as like a closing statement here? Well,
I'd love to have people's vote. And I think that it's time that we had a legislature that pays more attention to the people they're supposed to represent rather than the corporations.
That's a good message to go out on. Everybody, if you want to find out more about Kay Pence and her campaign in Iowa House District 70, you can visit k4iowa.com, and that's the number 4.
Well, thank you, Justin.
Thanks again, Kay, and you have a good day.
Will you send me a recording of this?
I will. I will try to get it edited by next week, and I will email you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Kay.
Sure. Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello.
Hi, is this Dani?
Yeah, this is Dani. Is this Justin?
Yes, this is Justin with Rock Hard Caucus. How are you, Dani?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. And just so I have this right, is your last name pronounced Duggan?
Yeah, it's Duggan.
Okay, Dani Duggan. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I got to listen to some of your podcasts that were already up. That was exciting.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing your research. I did a little bit of research on you as well. I am recording this call. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, you can cut it. I assume you're going to take bits and parts or, add little flashy, noise at the beginning or this or that or whatever,
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it'd be great.
So, Dani, you are running as a Republican for Iowa House District 34, and the 34th district is in Des Moines. It's the part of Des Moines that has Drake in it, the college Drake.
Yeah, a real simple. It's from 2nd to 41st, and if you've been to Des Moines and you're aware, it's Euclid and Douglas is the same street, and it goes all the way to the interstate, basically. So it's about 40, blocks.
Right.
On the west side of Des Moines.
Mm-hmm. Just north of 235.
Yeah, right, on the north side.
And, okay, what I know about this district is currently represented by Representative Akko Abdul Samad, who has chosen not to run for re-election. And the Democrat running for his seat is Rob Johnson. And this is a heavily Democratic district. They typically vote very blue, right?
I mean, I guess you could say that about Polk County in general.
Sure.
The whole county, So, yeah, Rob Johnson is my opponent. Akko Abdul Samad, he was the state rep since 2000, I want to say 7 or something like that. And then Ed Fallon was the one before that.
Okay.
So he's a really interesting character. You guys might like him. You might want to bring Ed on your podcast. Ed's awesome. He walked to Paris for climate change. So he's a real interesting cat. So yeah, it's the west side, but that's kind of a little bit of the history. It has been predominantly run by Democrats, and Jack Whitaker, actually, I don't know if you know who Jack Whitaker is.
Yep.
He is a GOP in the Senate now. When he went to Drake, he ran against Akko back in the day and lost. That was one of the first ones that they say that Jack lost was against Akko. So I just thought that was always an interesting tidbit.
That is.
If you know. Some people are like, who's Jack Whitaker?
Oh, I know Jack Whitaker.
Exactly. Well, you might, but other people, like my mom and my kids and stuff, are like, who's Jack Whitaker?
Sure, I might be a little. I might be paying a little more attention to this than a normal person would.
Oh yeah,
Dani, could I read from the About Me section on your YouTube page?
Can you? What does it say? I don't remember what it says. Do you want to read it, or do you want me to read it?
I'm going to read it. This will be sort of a little bit of an introduction to who you are.
Okay.
So again, this is from Dani's YouTube page.
Okay.
It says, I am a political candidate in Iowa for House District 34 on the GOP ticket, a Trumper on the west side of Des Moines, a.k.a. Dirty Money Island.
Yeah.
So I was not familiar with this term, Dirty Money Island. Where does that come from?
DMI? Dirty Money Island was actually a saying I had heard on the east side. When I first came here, I met two interesting guys when I first came to Iowa. One who went to Harvard and one who went to Morehouse. And I met them both in Des Moines. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. Why would somebody from Harvard or somebody from Morehouse be in Iowa, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And totally judgy person, obviously. But the east side, some of them called it Dirty Money Island. That's where I got it, was my friend who went to Morehouse. And, you know, it's just something I called it for a while. A lot of people, you know, might have unscrupulous ways to make their, you know, money, do something strange for some change. I'm not sure. But yeah, DMI, Dirty Money Island, that's kind of, I don't want to just give it all to the east side, but that's where I heard it, was my friend on the east side. So yeah. I'm a copycat, so I stole it from him.
Yeah. And then this next paragraph from your YouTube page is pretty, I don't know, I guess exciting is the word for it. It says, a lot of people may or may not possibly accuse me of being an angry white lady from Ankeny who stays drunk, talks shit, and sucks dick. But I am here to say I am all that and much, much more.
Yeah.
So you accept the labels there, the angry white lady from Ankeny, you drink, talk shit, and apparently suck dick, as it says here.
Well, yeah, I mean, they accuse me of a lot of things, but that generally, wrapping it up, is some of the things that I get accused of the most. And a lot of my friends will say, you know, it's like, this sounds like fun or whatever, but it can get very exhausting after a while.
Yeah.
It can't, you know. A lot of it, the angry white lady label, and I put that in my Des Moines Register profile as my occupation.
I saw that.
That was actually, that was a bet that my dad and I had that I won. Was I was going to get the Des Moines Register to call me an angry white lady from Ankeny one way or another. And that stemmed from about a story, an old story that those on the west side might know or may not know, but I know my family does, that back in 2020, even longer story, even longer. Back in 2019, I left low-income housing on the west side. I was just exhausted from it. And I wanted to do something different. So I left housing and I started volunteering at nonprofits in Des Moines. Mm-hmm. And one of the very first nonprofits that I ever went to was Creative Visions, which is the KO's nonprofit, his 501c3, right, on 13th and Forest. So when I went there, you know, I had known of a KO from politics, and I had known of him from working in low-income housing and like referring people to see if they could get assistance there or what have you. But I had never directly worked with him. And so it was really interesting when I got there. It's kind of a nightmare, actually, to be honest with you. At that point, he hadn't paid filed his 990s for 4 years. This was like 2019, right, in the fall. So he hadn't paid his 990s.
And what's the 990?
A 990 is a form that you file when you're a 501c3. You want to file a 990, which you can find on GuideStar.
Okay, that's like the public filing for nonprofits.
Yeah, it's like your IRS statement, right?
Right.
So he didn't file one at all for like 4 years at that point. He owed the IRS over $100,000. Interesting. On the day before Christmas and Christmas Eve, NBC News called and wanted to speak to him. Man, looking back now, I wish I would have let him, but I didn't. I took that number, wrote it down, and just handed it to him. But, you know, hindsight is a motherfucker. Is an MF, sorry. Anyway.
You can swear if you want, but it's up to you.
Yeah, I heard that. Guys, I'm trying not to. You know, that's what I do if I curse and whatever. If like I'm on live taping and I mess up on what I want to say, I'll just start acting like a KCCI. I just started acting like I had Tourette's. I was like, fuck. You want to start over? And they were like, yeah. So I was like, okay, fuck. And then I'll just like, flip up the TV or whatever. And like, oh, okay, well,
fun day for them, huh?
Yeah, they were excited. But I had worked for Kale. He had not paid his $990, not even filed them, did not pay his taxes, owed the IRS over $100,000. He had scammed Prairie Meadows out of about $35,000 for this grant to renovate his food pantry kitchen. That wasn't done. Like, I literally had to move the fridges and clean cockroaches out of that kitchen. It was gross. He scammed money out from Iowa Workforce Development, where he had a program where he hired like old people and people with disabilities and stuff. But then I don't know how that really went. Like if he didn't, I don't know, like the specifics of why he owed them money or if he didn't pay their taxes or what the case was, right? Of course, I emailed Roxanne about this. I can forward you all these emails that I gave to Robbie, by the way.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it was just like one atrocity after another. Plus, there was like 5 years worth of Toys for Tots sorted on the second floor of their nonprofit. And I was mortified. Like, no, we're going to get rid of all of these toys, these coats you've been hoarding from Polk County supervisors for 2 years.
So they were not, the toys did not make it to the hands of the tots.
Right. The toys did not make it to the hands of the tots. And so they was like, yeah, in black bags with names on them, like literally the whole second floor. And I was just like, wow, this is intense. So I got all the stuff. We reorganized it. We got their order for that year. But I was like, we're getting rid of all this. You know, we're cleaning the house. We're going to do all of this. And I was still on the team. You know, so it wasn't really about exposing the IRS and exposing everything at that point. But then Abdi happened. And I didn't know if you remember, but Abdi Sharif was a young Muslim boy who was leaving his job at Target and then was never to be seen again.
Yes.
Yeah. That was in January of 2020. So when that happened, at this point, like I was helping volunteering at Creative Visions and helping them get all that stuff out. We got rid of all the Toys for Tots during the holiday season, but I was kind of stepping away more because I was like, man, this is just so immoral and unethical. And this stuff is kind of, you know, should be illegal. You can't, how can you be a long-standing state representative and have a 501c3 and then just not file your taxes and rip off Iowa Workforce Development? And you know, Prairie Meadows didn't really care about the $35,000. They were like, oh, we didn't really audit, you know, stuff like that. I was like, okay, cool. And then Abdi happened. When Abdi went missing, prior to that, Kyle had problems paying his staff. Now, I was a volunteer. His staff would wait like Pavlov's dogs on Fridays to get paid for him, right? And it was just something I was just always like, oh, my goodness, right? He raised $5,000 to find Abdi, went on TV even after he had raised that money, and then used that money to pay his staff. And when that happened, I was like, I'm done participating. I flipped over the table, you know, dropped the side game on the floor.
Like Jesus Christ himself.
Right. Like, oh my goodness, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, all three. What the hell are you doing?
Has this been a matter of public record at all at this point? Do people know about this?
People in the hood know, because like I went on. This is getting to my story about why I'm an angry white lady.
Okay, yes.
Not the talking shit and sucking dick, but
we don't need to talk too much about that.
White lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, long story, even longer. So. I went to Raygun after that happened and I asked Raygun if they would make a shirt that said Abdi is just as important as Molly. Because at that time, that was following Molly Tibbetts had been missing, and it was like national news, and she had gotten like through their family, not their family necessarily, because they did donate that money and give that money back, but they had gotten almost six figures, right, during that time frame for Molly. And so Raygon was down with it, you know. They were like, oh, Mikey at Raygon was like, yeah, sure, we'll put, you know, it on a t-shirt. And they sent me the proof. And I was like, okay, great. It was just going to be black with white letters. Obvi is just as important as Molly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I posted them on social media because Raygon was going to sell them they make their shirts for $5, just insider trade secret. If you have a nonprofit and you want Raygon to make a shirt for you, at least back in 2019, they would make you print shirts for $5.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, it's good to know. And then it might have gone up now. I don't know. You have to ask Mikey.
I'm sure
but
it did. Yeah.
They were going to charge me $5. And they did give me a bunch of other shirts that they had just, you know, made or whatever. But I've liked them since Smash, so they were great. And then we were going to sell them for $10. $5 was going to go to the family and $5 was going to go to Raygon, right? So not only did AKO raise the money and go online and pay his staff with the money he raised for Abdi, which I hadn't been really public about to that point. I was just like, no, I'm going to stop volunteering for you, right?
Yeah.
But then when the Raygon thing happened and I put the shirt out, I got like 1,000 orders before noon, right? And one of AKO's lachies called me and was like, hey, we can take those shirts to Roosevelt and blah, 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 and sell them, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, okay, but you're like, you realize you're doing it, you're not getting any of the money, right? Like, that's a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, Creative Visions is not going to get any of the money. They're not going to get any of the credit. This is truly just a me and Raygon thing, right? Like, I'm not going to fund your chaos. And AKO then went public and told everybody that the shirts were an insult to Molly Tibbetts and they shouldn't buy them, and that he just like shut the whole thing down to Raygon not to do it. Raygon like was kind of like, holy shit, because we got into it on the internet. Me and AKO did over the shirts after that, because I was like, whoa, bro, you need to relax. Take your parrot and move the fuck around, right? Let me sell my little shirts and give the family to Abdi's family. You just raised $5,000 and used it to pay these, you know, violence interrupters. And he didn't. So then I was angry. Then I got angry. And he shut that down. And Raygon was just like, we don't want this drama. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure you don't. You don't mind drama any other time. But
drama sells T-shirts, right?
Exactly, but they didn't want my drama because here I was telling AKO, go fuck yourself, AKO.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not taking any of this money. You just did this. Well, that's when it became apparent that I was no longer volunteering for Creative Visions, right? Mm-hmm. And I went on the hunt to find a Democratic person to run against him. I had about, at that point, a month where I had to find somebody, get him 50 signatures, and put him on the ballot, because it was like, this guy's gonna go. I'm over him. And that's when Calvetta Berry came, who is, Calvetta Berry has a nonprofit, Mothers Against Violence, here in Des Moines, and that's when she came in to the fold, was because I had went and I had asked a bunch of pastors and a bunch of older men that I felt could beat him in the numbers on the Democratic Party, and they didn't want to do it, or they weren't willing to, or maybe they didn't trust me. I don't know what the case was, but Calvetta was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I was like, okay. Tried to encourage her to be an independent and not primary him, right? Because that way then she would have gone a little bit longer.
Right.
But she didn't want to do that. She wanted to stay a Democrat. And then COVID happened and she ended up losing the primary. So I did educate, encourage, and empower her to run against him. But throughout that time frame, the Des Moines Register called me. So this is like on the eve of George Floyd. So we're in COVID. This is George Floyd like time. And chaos everywhere, like dodging rubber bullets and out there with police, like telling the young people, stop, I'm 70. I know I steal from the government, but you don't want to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Des Moines resident called me. She's no longer there. I won't expose her. She did a lot of the coverage for the George Floyd stuff. But she was like, hey, Dani, I wanted to call you because I wanted to know who put Calvada on the ticket. And I was like, oh, well, Calvada put herself on the ticket, right? I might have educated, empowered, and encouraged her to run. But Calvada did it. She's the one who went and got the signature. She's the one who filed it. I wasn't her campaign manager at this time. I'm like every day putting up pictures of a KO and a parrot on the internet, right? I'm like clowning this dude. I'm throwing out his 990s. I'm telling everyone about him. I'm putting out the videos of, the toys for tots. I'm like out there. I'm true angry white lady.
Did you say photos of a KO and a parrot?
Yeah, KO. Okay, every 4 years it's two things, or every 2 years, sorry, because of the state representative, every 2 years. A KO, what he would do is, he'd do his weekly podcast or his weekly newsletter or whatever again, whatever you call it, I don't know. And then you'd walk around with a parrot. That's like his claim to fame, walking around with a parrot.
Didn't realize that.
And so, yeah, obviously all you have to do in Polk County is be a Democrat and have a parrot on your shoulder and you can win. You don't actually have to have any education or experience in politics. And you can completely steal from the government or whatever. They're totally cool with that. So the register girl called me and she's like, yeah, well, KO told me that you were just an angry white lady from Ankeny. And I always leave this part off, but he said trying to keep a black man down.
Yeah.
And I said, what? Hablo English? And she was like, yeah. And he said, can you put that in writing? So I can sue him. Because I would love nothing more, right? Than to be able to sue a KO for telling the Des Moines Register that. And she's like, no, I don't think that I can. And she was obviously a huge pussy because she ended up leaving the Register. Or she was probably not getting paid very much money anyway.
No, I've heard stories. Yeah,
it's a nightmare. But yeah, so she ended up leaving, and that's where the angry white lady thing came. So I told my dad, I'm like, someday, somehow, some way, the Des Moines Register is going to write that I'm an angry white lady from Ankeny. And he's like, yeah, all right, I'll bet you $100 they don't. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And so now,
you made it happen.
4 years later, they printed it, and I got my $100.
Speaking of the Ankeny part of that, they did. So this is a Des Moines Register article from back in May, several months ago, when this race was just like starting to happen.
Yeah.
They noted that candidates must live in the districts they want to represent 60 days before the general election. So the question is, do you live in Ankeny now? Is that what they were talking about there?
They've been talking about that from the very beginning, about how, because it partly maybe is my own fault for putting that out there and nobody knowing where I got the nickname of Angry White Lady from Ankeny. Sure. I alienated myself quite a bit from a lot of Ankeny women because they thought I was making fun of them. And I was like, I'm not making fun of you. I'm making fun of myself, right? I'm winning a bet with my dad. So that's the goal.
There are some stereotypes about Ankeny, so I can see how they might take that personally.
Yeah, they totally took it personally. Well, they didn't tell me, but some of their husbands told me. We'll just put it that way.
Okay.
So it's been, I probably threw a little bit of flames on that, but one thing that the media only talked to me about was, why would a white lady from Ankeny be able to represent this district, right? And they never asked, no offense to anyone or full offense if he takes it that way, they never asked a black pastor from Chicago why he would be able to represent that district. But they asked me. And I felt that was really ironic because I have 6 kids, 5 boys, 1 girl, but I have a set of twins. And my youngest are 12. Their father actually grew up on 17th and Clark, which is a block away from where Akeo bought his house with C-Tech money.
Mm-hmm.
You can look up C-Tech later. That's Archie Brooks and Akeo thing from back in the day. And their great aunt is actually Akeo's sister, Stephanie Jewett. That's their great aunt. And so their father being from there, not wanting to run himself, and other people from that district not wanting to run, I was like, well, you know, I have education, I have experience in politics. I'm not going to put somebody up again against him. I will just, you know, now that he's retiring, as a dare for my dad, was like, hey, you're perimenopausal, you're knocking on the door 50 and you need to get a job. Why don't you run for a KO spot at the Iowa House? And I was like, bet, I'll do it. And I'll get the Des Moines Register to write, I'm an angry white lady. So I won multiple bets during this campaign already. Not that I gamble or promote gambling right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask, did you win any money off those bets to take care of the job situation?
Well, my dad claims I have like a book of ledger of things I owe him, so I think it just got taken off my ledger.
Gotcha.
I think he didn't necessarily give me cash. So yeah, they've been asking me that, but I'm like, listen, my children are literally, you know, nepotism in politics exists, whether you want to admit it or not. You know, we wouldn't have Pat Grassley if it didn't. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it makes more sense, or it would, for a KO to mentor or groom, as I like to call it, even though it's a felony now.
Well, yeah, it didn't used to only mean, you know, pedophilic stuff. Groom has other meanings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now it's a felony. You can get it. So he's mentoring Rob Johnson from Chicago. Mm-hmm. He's not grooming him. Of course, I'm running so that way I can groom, or better said, educate, empower, and encourage the next leader from that district to run. So I'm sorry, I got off a little bit there. You're going to cut this part out, right? If I just fuck, like, oh, I had like a brain fart, right?
I'll cut for pacing. And
you'll
whatnot.
edit it and make it look nice? Okay, good. Or is it just all going to be me cursing, like at the beginning of the podcast?
I'm going to leave some cursing in.
Motherfucker.
Because that's what our audience wants. They want to hear you say bad words, you know?
Yeah, I guess. Right?
Well, the question then is, do you live in that district currently?
Well, currently what I do is I rent a room out of that district. And it became a big deal because when I filed my DR1, it became a big deal, one, because Aaron Kieran put Rob Johnson on the news claiming that Rob Johnson was going to take a KO spot, right? Before you could even put your name on a ballot. So she did that like February 15th. And then it became an even bigger deal because I filed my DR1. Now, when you're going to run for office, a way to make a splash in politics is to file your DR1. You're going to start a committee, right? People for Dani committee. And typically you have yourself, like your campaign manager, your treasurer, right? So I wasn't going to lie about where I lived or, you know, anything like that. And I did understand, because they went after Jack Winifred for that address thing. I did understand that you have to live there. So I put my address in Ankeny and I started looking for somewhere. Now, someone that works in low-income housing, according to HUD calculations, even on the $35,000, which is an improvement from last year, they gave themselves a raise. You cannot afford a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in the west side of Des Moines. So this was going to be an affordable housing issue to me, because I was like, listen, if a state representative can't even afford to live in that district, and I don't have C-Tech money that I can steal from the government, right, to buy a house on Clark, and I can't rip off, you know, I don't have a 501c3 that I can rip off the IRS or Iowa Workforce Development either. So I'm going to have to, you know, find affordable housing or something that's safe, stable, and affordable. But I couldn't. So I have to rent a room out of someone's house, right? I know that we talked briefly in my email how I got attacked or whatever. Mm-hmm. I have been at my Ankeny house since, you know, I got my traumatic brain injury. But I still have a room that I rent down there. And to me, some people are going to say, oh, well, you know, you don't really live in the district, blase. Well, neither does Pastor Big Boobies. He's never lived in the district. He lived in West Des Moines. And on his DR1, him and another pastor went and rented a one-bedroom apartment in the Drake neighborhood and put it on their DR1 just so he could run for office. Now, if you ask me, that's something that Democrats do all over the nation, where they'll go in the hood, they'll rent an apartment and run for office just to do it, instead of just claiming where they really live and running for that spot and moving according to how the law is set up, right? Which is what I did. And it became quite a big issue. And I started to get offended because I'm like, listen, like, one, I'm not just an angry white lady from Ankeny who stays drunk, talks shit, and sucks dick. Like I said, I'm all that and a lot more. But I'm not lying about who I am or where I'm from or why I'm running. And I'm doing it for my children. Nobody's asking this guy where he came from. Nobody's asking this guy why he rents a studio apartment in Drake neighborhood with another pastor on his DR1. Nobody's asking that pastor who shares, you know, an apartment with him why he's getting a homestead tax credit on a $350,000 house on the south side. You know, so if you ask me, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And we want to talk about, you know, well, why are you angry, or why are you from Ankeny? Why do you care about the West Side, or blah, 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 when, you know, it all comes down to Kale and his parrot at the end of the day. And my children are related to him, whether he likes it or not, whether he thinks that, you know, acceptable, whether he wants to groom somebody from his family. There's lots of people from the West Side he could have groomed. He didn't have to come take that guy from Chicago. And they got real issues and serious problems over here that we don't want here. And we already have our own on the West Side. Like, why would we want to follow what's going on there? We don't. And yeah, I got a little bit kind of pissy about it with some people. Like, I went off on some of them. I went off on Laura Beline, who is a blogger here.
I know Laura. Yep.
Yeah, I went off on Laura and made some snide remark about her just getting her press credentials last year.
Just
like, how dare you ask me, Laura, like, about who I am or why I'm running? You obviously know nothing about the West Side. Obviously, none of them. Aaron Kieran, let's talk about how much money your husband makes on developer fees from his LIHTC scams. Instead of you going on TV and taking this pastor and saying he's going to win the seat. Because who are you and what does your husband do and who's this guy? Because I've been involved in the background on the West Side for a long time, and I didn't see Rob Johnson at all anywhere until the George Floyd stuff. And then when I did, he was riding around in a car thinking he's cool, trying to play middleman with the KO and his parrot, catching rubber bullets from DMPD, right? So who are these people? Why are you doing this? Why do people say KO is like the representative of the West Side when most of the people on the West Side aren't going to listen to him? These young people, these young outlaws, these young Seaboks are not going to listen to some 7-year-old guy. And should they listen to, you know, some perimenopausal angry white lady from Ankeny? You know, I don't know. It's questionable. But I know a lot more about what's going on in the streets, just like Calvetta knows a lot more about what was going on in the street than he does. So, like I said, I had to snap on some of them. I had to go and be an asshole to some of them about it. Like, you don't know, obviously, anything about me, anything about Akel, anything about these people. And I can tell you right now, they're not going to resonate with that guy either. They can't. Like, no one I know, anyway. I know he put up a hell of a lot of signs, and, you know, I know about his gas scam, But that's about all I know, you know?
Well, Dani, I have one thing that I really wanted to make sure that I ask you about, and I do have to go to work like in a little bit, so unfortunately we do have to wrap up pretty soon. But I pulled this from the Times Delphic, which is the Drake student newspaper. They interviewed you, and I thought this was really interesting. Duggan is running on the Republican ticket because that is where she feels she can be most beneficial. She said it would be much more effective for her to join the Iowa GOP caucus, where she can stop bad bills at the source. She said she plans to speak out against bills she and her constituents disagree with at each stage of the legislative process. So, Dani, could you give me an example of a bad bill that you would like to stop?
Oh, wow. Just one?
Well,
well, just so you know, my policy has always been, I've been either by force as a child or by choice as an adult involved in politics in the background. Good people make good policy regardless of political party. And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian, Green Party, I don't care. If you're a good person, you're going to take into consideration all of the constituents in Iowa when you pass something. For a long time in Iowa, we have been talking about imaginary issues and pretend problems, and I'm sick of it. It's a nightmare. A couple of them, even last year, there was one GOP guy that tried to pass a raccoon tail bill where, you know, he owns this like homestead place over in Tama, and I guess he wanted the DNR to pay people $5 for a raccoon tail. And yeah, we have a huge problem with raccoons in our abandoned buildings on the west side, but it was so ridiculous to me. I was just like, oh my gosh, raccoon lives matter, right? Like, no, $5 for a raccoon tail. I don't know if the Daniel Boone, like, market took a hit or what, but even the simple fact that they're in Iowa GOP caucus or a committee or anything talking about nonsense like that was just like blew my mind. I was like, oh wow, no, I don't think so. I get kind of irritated too. I'm definitely a convention of states person, if not even smaller. I'm a convention of counties person, where I think county departments or county supervisors can have more like impact on their local environment, and they know more of what's going on than a state representative. But I'm sick of our state government picking fights with the federal government, regardless, whether it's on abortion or immigration or what have you. It's a lot of wasted time, energy, and effort by a lot of people to pick fights with the federal government that eventually we're not going to win anyway. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, a lot of things that they're doing and talking about, these imaginary issues and pretend problems, are marginalizing other people in Iowa that I just don't agree with. I don't want to be in any caucus where we're talking about the amount of Delta 9 in a drink or in a gummy. I don't want to be talking about any of that, let alone the abortion and illegal immigration stuff. You know, that's really not our place anyway. But aside from that, the raccoon tails, the whole assault that Kim Reynolds and those guys have made on the THC industry, other things where they're marginalized people, whether they're in the LGBTQ community or what have you. Mm-hmm. I don't, and I believe a lot of my constituents will agree with me on this, I don't feel it's any benefit to be sitting in caucus, Iowa GOP caucus, or sitting in the committee talking about people that aren't sitting at the table with us. So you're passing bills and signing legislation into law that's marginalizing people, and the majority of those people don't agree with it. It makes no sense. So it needs to stop. So when I say I'm ready to go into Iowa GOP caucus and tell them to stop it, I'm dead serious. Some of them need to get a grasp on reality and realize that we have people dying. We have children dying. We have homeless veterans. We have elderly that can't afford their medication. We have single moms who can't put gas in their car to go to work, even if they could run by a Pastor Rob gas scam on the way to work, he's going to ask him for cash donations to his Joppa restaurant on 6th Avenue. No, these aren't real common sense solutions to problems. And to be honest with you, I don't care what bathroom someone uses or what sport they decide to play or what have you. The fact that they waste so much time and energy discussing the sex lives of children is kind of just deplorable to me. Like, you guys need to get a life for real. And we have gay people in Iowa GOP. There are conservative gay people.
Sure.
Regardless of if that's like a mind-blowing thing to somebody. Joe, I'm not, never mind. Or zip that out.
You're about to out somebody?
I'm not outing somebody. I'm not going to out somebody. I'm not going to out anybody like David Young or anybody. I'm not outing anybody.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
But I am saying they exist and they have a voice too, and they don't agree with what you're saying. You know what I mean? We have angry white ladies from Ankeny who have cats that don't agree, that are in the GOP that don't agree with what you're saying and what you're doing. So it needs to stop, you know?
Yep.
And I feel it's far more effective for me to stop bad bills at caucus so it doesn't get to committee. But if I know that there's something there that my constituents won't agree with or don't like, or I get 800 emails about like the AEA or something like that,
right,
I'm going to stop it. I am not someone who can be intimidated, someone who can be bullied, and I'm not scared of anyone in the Iowa GOP. We have a swamp here in Iowa that needs to be it's drained just like Washington. And there's a crack in our Iowa GOP right now. Us Trumpers, they're not like us. And you can talk to a lot of them and they'll tell you, Iowa GOP is not like us at all. And we don't agree with a lot of the things that they've been doing either. And we really need to, focus, follow one course until successful every day, because if we stop talking about imaginary issues and pretend problems, we can focus on common sense solutions to the real issues and serious problems we're facing. We can't be out here wasting time picking fights and, bending over for money. I mean, that's ridiculous. This whole CO2 thing, too, is another thing that's a nightmare. It's a reckless and dangerous nightmare. And I think when I went to the Capitol last year about that, I have no qualms. I'll wear my Trump hat to the Capitol. A lot of people are nowadays scared, and after getting my head bashed in, I can understand. But I have no qualms about stuff like that. I'll walk right in there. And I went to a big pipe protest, because who doesn't love big pipe protests, right? Last year, I was like, sure. Oh, yes, I definitely want to do that. And I was in a room with, I know Black Lives Matter people, whatever, they've yelled at me in the Capitol before. You can put that on my resume. But I walked into a room with them and, Sierra Club members. And, we're sitting there with our free Jimmy John subs and whatever, and I'm looking around and everybody's, smiling at me, right? I'm like, what in the world is going on, right? Wow. So I leaned over to the lady next to me, and I'm like, is this a room full of Sierra Club and Black Lives Matter people? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, am I the only Trump supporter here? And she was like, no, I support Trump too. I just don't wear his stuff everywhere. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for, common ground with that pipeline stuff that the mainstream politicians in this state are not willing to touch. That's something that I've learned from talking to people the past couple years.
Well, I mean, we just gave up supermajority in the Senate. Why would Waylon Brown, the guy from over there by y'all, right? Why would you primary another guy who didn't want to go up against CO2, who wanted to go up against the CO2 pipeline? Why would you primary him and then quit and give up supermajority? Well, the reason they want to give up supermajority is because of the eminent domain bill has passed unanimously in the House for 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Never got past the Senate, right? Well, let's say we put another bill in, not me, somebody else. I'm just going there to party, obviously, for 100 days. But somebody else puts the bill in, and I'm like, yeah, everybody in the House is like, yeah, you can't take our land, right? And then it goes to the Senate and passes. Governor Reynolds can veto that. And then we don't have a supermajority to override a governor's veto. And so
right.
They're bending over left and right for Bruce Rastetter.
Mm-hmm.
And the tax credits are government scam across the board, whether you're talking about LIHTC or whether you're talking about the CO2 pipes or whatever, right? But they're bending over for these tax credits like Bruce Rastetter's a billionaire, which he is.
Yes.
And so it's like, it's kind of insane, what's going on. And when and I think as somebody who is in the Iowa GOP, they need to hear that from someone like me. Because, the Sierra Club can be out there hugging trees, and Black Lives Matter can be laying on the ground screaming, fuck 12 in the cafeteria, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm the one in the GOP caucus, not wearing a bra, standing there with my fingers up, looking at these guys like, no, I don't think so. Otherwise we're going to start talking about who's bending over, where they're bending over, and how much they're getting. Because I like to audit like Bobby's saying too. And so, it's just, that's another imaginary issue and potential problem. There's so many. But things like that, to me, it's far more effective for my constituents' voice to be heard that way than it is to have a freshman legislator who's a Democrat that's not going to get a bill passed, that's not going to be a ranking member on any committee, and that really won't be able to do anything but cry on the House floor after something's already going to be signed into law.
Right.
Like, Democrats in Iowa don't get bills passed. And that's a fact, unless you have the Iowa GOP on your side. And I'm willing to work, across the aisle and do that with them. And I'm willing to stand up for my constituents and say, I don't think so. No more. Steve Holt, we're buddies, but this is a wrap. We're not going to be doing this anymore.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I just talked to a lot of my constituents about, and it makes sense to them. Now, some of the hardcore Democrats are like, well, I'm going to stand with him, on this abortion issue. Rob keeps saying, I'm not going to go, I don't want to be in the doctor's room with you. Well, gross. I don't want you in my fucking doctor's room either, But I did go to Planned Parenthood in Drake and made an appointment and got to meet those ladies, because sometimes you can hear all these stories about, they're just baby killers or this or that or whatever, right? But to go there and actually make an appointment and get seen and meet the people and have conversations with them, you realize that we're not that far different from each other.
No, they're just people with jobs. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's like they're humans too. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't think that the woman who made my appointment and checked me in is sitting there stabbing babies in the head all day, every day.
No, I don't. I don't think she's doing that either.
Right.
Well, Dani,
Rob
I gotta.
Didn't come to my appointment, so
that's good.
I was safe from that.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that too.
Yeah, I know.
So I gotta get running here, Dani. I want to thank you for taking me up on my invitation to talk today. If anyone listening to this interview wants to find out more about you, how should they find that information? Well, I'm working on my website. I did start it. I haven't been. I've been focused on my trauma recovery the last couple of weeks more than the website. But I will have the www.peoplefordanny.com website done. I'm obviously on Facebook. I'm not really on much other social media, but obviously my phone number is public. Call me up. Come to, ask me a question directly. People have a lot of misnomers and misconceptions of me. I like to claim I'm an enigma, but at the same time, when we sit down and talk, like I said, we
realize we're not that far from each other. And I'm not running, so you know, Rock Hard Caucus audience, I'm not running so that people can hear my opinions or my voice, because they're completely and utterly irrelevant at this point. And no politician should be running so that their opinions are the number one thing that they're running for. I'm running to represent the voice of the people of Iowa House District 34. This is something that hasn't happened since Akio was in office, and your voice needs to be heard and respected. So, you know, if my constituents, I don't play the Trump-Harris debate with my constituents, because you never really want to ever vote a straight ticket. If you want a Harris sign, I'll help you get a Harris sign in your yard. And Ankeny area Democrats have actually been very helpful with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a Trump sign, I'll give you a Trump sign. But most of the time, those get stolen. I make my own signs. So if you want a sign and you want something said on it, I'll make it for you. You know, I want your voice to be elevated, and I want you to be educated, empowered, and encouraged to be involved in this process, because I am only running for one, 2-year period. It's a $35,000 a year, 100 days. So $70,000 in 200 days. I will, groom the next leader to know how these people maneuver up at the Capitol, but I'm not running to take over for the next 15 years and run this place into the ground. We've already been beaten down for too long, and, we need a change of course. Because if you go with what you've already got, you're going to get more of what you've already gotten, and it's not working. We have increased deaths with children. We have increased graduation dropouts. We have low home ownership and increased homelessness, an increase in drug addiction with our youth. Guns and crime is rampant in our area. I mean, I just got attacked at Chester's, which has an open air drug market there. No, enough is enough. We need to stop this, and we need to focus. Like I said, follow one course and feel successful every day. I'm the person that'll go into Iowa GOP caucus and tell them to stop it. I can actually get things passed. I can sign on to legislation that will go into law. I've impacted Iowa code in the past, and I have the education and experience to do it. Of course, they never really wanted to be the talent or the political candidate themselves. I personally like being in the background. I like being able to be the angry white lady who, talk shit, stays drunk, and suck dick. I like that part. I like going to the strip club with legislators, which happens. I like hanging out at the bar with them.
Okay, right on. Well, let's leave it there, because that's a great image. You at the strip club with all the other legislators. That's how you should picture Dani Duggan, and that's where we'll leave it for today. Thanks again, Dani.
Oh, thanks, Justin. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, bye.
See ya. And now the outro. Okay, so I hope that you feel you learned something from that. Like I said, weird episode, and I'm probably going to do another one of these next week because I got more of these phone interviews scheduled. But yeah, let us know what you think of anything that any of these people said. You can contact us very easily by calling 319-849-8733, or you can send an email to rockhardcaucus@gmail.com. You could also mail me something at P.O. Box 5336 in Coralville, Iowa, zip code 52241. A lot of the listener feedback we get ends up being discussed on our Rock Hard Call Us series, which you can access by visiting patreon.com/rockhardcaucus. All the audio that's up there, this is a subscription platform. We put a lot of premium audio up there behind a paywall, but our paywall is $1. All the audio we've ever put up there since 2019 is up there for $1. If we happen to make a video episode, that's behind a $5 paywall. So pretty affordable, I would say. If you have the means to support the project, I would appreciate that support, because I have been putting a lot of time into this in the past few weeks. I do have a few events coming up that I would like to plug at this time. CCANCon, which is the Corridor Community Action Network's annual event on the Iowa City Ped Mall, is coming up on October 19th. And I'm going to be playing a little bit of music at that, so it would be nice to see you out there on the Ped Mall, October 19th. And then a little over a week after that, October 27th, there's going to be a show at Public Space One's Close House. The Hirsch Hansen Klauser trio from Minneapolis, they do kind of a, experimental jazz type thing. They're on tour, they're going to be playing, and the Christine Burke Ensemble will be opening for them. I will be playing with the Christine Burke Ensemble. We'll be playing a piece that I composed as well. October 27th at Public Space One Close House. And I guess looking ahead to the future, next month, my trio Wombat will be going on tour. We're going to be at Resource in Minneapolis on November 22nd. Trumpet Blossom in Iowa City on I hope I said the right month. This is in November. Trumpet Blossom in Iowa City on November 23rd. Comfort Station in Chicago on November 24th. You can find all that stuff at justincakehomer.com/shows. By the way, if you live in Iowa City, check out ihearic.com as well. Juliet from the band Boot Camp compiles a list of every show in Iowa City that's worth knowing about into a big list, and I have rehosted that list at that website, ihearic.com, every month. I suppose that's about it for today. Some closing music. My friend Eric Whitaker last week released an album called Mystery Animal. I'm going to play a little bit of that now to close this out. You can find that at ericwhitaker.bandcamp.com. It's Eric with a K, and I'll just spell it all. Whitaker is Whittaker. Okay? And this is a little bit from Mystery Animal. If you're a local musician, you have music you would like us to play on the show, please visit rockhardcock.us and find the link near the top of the page to submit your music, because I would love to hear it, and I'd love to make other people hear it by playing it on the podcast. All right. See you soon. Bye. We can